my name is Dr. Brett Murphy-Dawson, and I'm a child psychiatrist.
Hi, I am Bobbi Starr, and I'm the Executive Director of Micha's Promise. Micha's Promise is an organization in Columbus that's fighting sex trafficking of children.
And sex trafficking is a form of human trafficking. The definition of human trafficking is when one uses force, fraud, or coercion to compel someone to do a sex act or even an adult entertainment performance act.
And that's what we're here to talk to you about today, is human trafficking and sex trafficking of children and what that looks like and how that could impact children in our community. To give you a little backstory of when I first learned about trafficking, I learned about it in 2009 at a conference in New Orleans. I worked for the Sexual Assault Support Center, and I learned there what trafficking of kids meant. It made me think about a case, one of the first cases I went on when I was a victim advocate for sexual assault back in 1998. I went to the emergency room to assist a sexual assault victim, and that victim was only 12 years old.
Wow.
She was in middle school.
Wow.
Yeah, and I quickly learned from communicating with her mom before I went into the room that in her mom's eyes, she was a bad girl because she'd been going off with men since she was 9 years old. And my immediate thought was, wait a minute, a child has been being sexually violated in her neighborhood, and the neighborhood's been blaming the child, including her parent had been blaming the child. So you have a child who doesn't have any protection in her home and who's being sexually violated. This child ended up having 3 STDs, that's sexually transmitted diseases, and she never got the care and support she deserved to get. And that was 21 years ago. So now she's part of the reason that we do the work that we do, is to make sure that every child feels supported and protected.
What do you think made that young child at risk for being trafficked?
Yeah, so there are many risks to be aware of, and I think her most basic vulnerabilities, she was really vulnerable, which we all have vulnerabilities, right?
What's a vulnerability mean?
Good question. A vulnerability is actually just a need that we have that somebody can take advantage of. And so her vulnerabilities were she lived in poverty. She was an African American child, so she was a minority. And she didn't have adults protecting her. So her community did not do what the adults should do, is hold the other adults responsible. So she was very vulnerable in that she didn't have the protection that she deserved. And also the children didn't have a lot of oversight. There weren't people engaged with them. So it was easy for people to get her to just leave the house and go off with them, and nobody would stop them.
So unfortunately, the village was not protecting her.
The village was not protecting her.
Taking advantage of her.
Exactly.
And in one definition that we didn't really talk about with trafficking is that it's when anyone takes advantage or exchanges anything of value for the sex act.
Right.
So I don't know if you remember, but what was the value that they exchanged for the sex act for her?
So with her, it could have been anything from candy. So she actually was rescued when a stranger saw her at one of our local parks. She was with a younger sibling, and strangers saw a car pull up. She got in the car and left the younger sibling at the park, and so strangers called 911. And in her situation, said they'd give her candy or just a little gift. And she thought, she didn't know that she was a victim. She was a really compliant. She did what she was told. And so the exchange of anything of value, like Dr. Dawson just said, that makes it sexual exploitation. So with a kid, somebody could offer you a cell phone, food, shelter. It doesn't have to be money even.
And again, the vulnerabilities, that doesn't mean that you're weak. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're weak, or it doesn't mean that it's your fault.
Right.
And one of the vulnerabilities for that young lady, and then for all of you, is your age.
Yes.
Simply by the fact that you're under 25. It's not till about the age of 25 when your prefrontal cortex, part of your brain, is fully developed. So until then, you don't have the ability to have executive functioning, which means the ability to plan ahead, to think about consequences. So instead, you tend to rely on your emotions, to act impulsively, and to not think of the consequences. And so just, that's how God made us, you know, and so it's not that it's your fault or that you're weak, it just means that's just, you're vulnerable simply because of your age. That's one of people's invulnerabilities when they're less than 25 years old, give or take, so.
Yeah, and we really want you to understand that we've studied this issue for a long time to really try to figure out what makes you vulnerable and how can we help empower you to step forward into life and become independent, and what to look for with somebody who might be trying to take advantage of you and those vulnerabilities. Because traffickers, when we talk about this issue, you know, you might know what a pimp is. Well, in today's terminology, we don't call them pimps because they're really kind of bad people, because they do really terrible things and make money off of selling humans. But traffickers, they are looking for anything they can take advantage of, and knowing that you're under 18, they know that. They know that you're gonna make emotional decisions. And so
they play on that.
They come in, they romance you, right? They come in and they're gonna try to be your boyfriend. Or is it always boys?
Right, it could be
is it
girls.
always men? No, it could be your new best friend, a female friend. Oftentimes traffickers will send in a female to befriend somebody, and then that female will then bring you to the trafficker and through the relationship.
Excuse that.
That's okay.
So traffickers can look like anyone, and in this young lady's case, it was, you know, somebody from the neighborhood, someone that probably the mother knew, you know, and a lot of times they groom or try to befriend the family to get them to trust them as well. So,
and that when we think about family, and that's another thing we have to talk about. Some of us have actually been hurt by our families, right? And it's really important that we find somebody that is safe, that we can trust, that we can talk to about the things that have hurt us, especially if it was within our families. Oftentimes that causes such a vulnerability that people don't even realize. The people that we should have been able to trust, who were supposed to take care of us, broke our trust and let us down. That we consider that one of the major vulnerabilities to traffickers as well, because then they come in and they want to tell you, you can trust me, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to protect you, and then they completely take advantage of it. And again, none of this is the child's fault. None. Nada. Is it ever?
Never.
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 Never?
Ever.
Ever, right.
But since it is hard sometimes, since the people that's supposed to take care of you sometimes take advantage of you, sometimes it's hard to know who to go to. So that's why we always say, keep talking, keep sharing your story until you find someone that does listen. You know, whether it's a teacher, whether it's somebody at your church, just, you know, continue to keep talking and keep advocating for yourself until you find someone that will listen. Or call a hotline number.
Absolutely. So there's a national hotline number if you suspect that somebody you know is being trafficked, or if you yourself are in a situation that you need help. And the National Trafficking Hotline number is 1-888-3737-888. So we look forward to meeting y'all hopefully one day, and or we will have a Zoom meeting soon.
Right.
Have grace on us for our goofy video skills, because we're new to this. But just know that your value is beyond measure, and you're priceless. And